The NFL Combine starts next week, and NFL Network draft analyst Daniel Jeremiah addressed the media jackals, having a conference call ahead of the Combine. And one of my favorite things, because DJ has a lot of insights and just all of the various media jackals just peppering him with questions like, hey, what should the Patriots do in the third round? It is really interesting. Also, remember when Mike Mayock used to do these? And then he was GM of the Raiders for like 2 seconds. But a couple of comments and answers that pertain to the Vikings that we want to go through. So let's go. Aaron Wilson, NFL Network conference call with Daniel Jeremiah. It's a really good corner group, a good edge rusher group, tight end as good as I've seen in 10 years. He also mentioned that he had 11 tight ends with day 1, day 2 grades, which is amazing. It's a fun draft. The quarterbacks are going to be a big storyline. It's deep at some positions for sure. So specifically for the Vikings, talking about cornerback. So even though the Vikings invested a second and a fourth last year in corner in Booth and Evans respectively, a lot of mock drafts have the Vikings going corner, and I don't really blame them. And the cornerback group is deep. I think that they don't necessarily have to go corner at 23 if they trade down. If they wait to the third round, I think they're still going to get a very solid player just because of the depth of this class. But like I said, if Cam Smith is there, I actually think. So this is CBS cornerback rankings. I would put Witherspoon 1. I put Gonzalez 2. I put Porter 3. I put Porter in the same area as like a Cam Smith, etc. I would lower Keeley, but I would actually have Tyreek Stevenson a lot higher. But either way, it really is in the eye of the beholder. It's a very good cornerback class, so if the Vikings want to go that route, it does make sense because the depth will be there. Then Ben Volen. Mr. Move the Stick says he has spoken with several teams that have Florida's Anthony Richardson as the second best quarterback in the draft. Teams are starting to look at those players as lottery tickets, and he's got the biggest payout with Anthony Richardson. You don't have a ceiling, and that's what we've said. Where a lot of Vikings fans are like, okay, if Richardson gets to 23, do they take a shot? He's not going to get to 23. Where I've talked about before, where like DJ said, teams are betting on upside. So that's why Josh Allen got the time of day. That's why Will Levis is going to get the time of day. That's why AR is going to get the time of day. Because with Richardson, he's got the tools. Like, he is a combination of Josh Allen and Cam Newton, where you got all the upsides there. And you look at a general manager, you look at a coaching staff. The coaching staff is just going to be like, hey, if we can work with Richardson for a year or two, we can completely make him into what he needs to be in the professional game. And he probably would have benefited greatly from returning to Florida for a year. Probably would have been in the conversation with Caleb Williams next year as the number 1 overall pick, as well as with May. But the fact that Richardson could still, I don't think there's any chance that he gets outside the top 10, and he could be QB2, maybe even QB1 by the time this thing is all said and done, just because of his upside and him coming in as a redshirt sophomore. So he's probably the most intriguing name in this draft class, and also where he goes is going to determine where the rest of the quarterbacks fall, and it's really, really super intriguing, man. Then Antoine V. Staley, Jets writer. DJ says Tennessee quarterback Hendon Hooker would have been a first-round pick if not for his ACL injury despite his age. Says Hooker is an intriguing prospect. And I do like Hendon Hooker quite a bit, where I thought he was great at Tennessee, even though Tennessee's offense under Heupel, a little bit college-y, it's whatever, but it's all matriculating up to the NFL, right? Look at the Eagles offense this year, where I don't think that the gap between Hooker and the big 4 quarterbacks in this class is that large. I think that gap between Hooker and the rest and the top 4 and then the rest of them is pretty large. But a lot of people are making things making a big deal about Hooker's age. He's 25, he's whatever, where quarterbacks are routinely playing into their mid and late 30s at a high level. And also, Hooker coming off of ACL, it's not like he's a running back. It's not like he's a receiver. It's not like he's a cornerback. He's a quarterback. And even when fully healthy, like, he did have some movement skills, but he's also, not Lamar Jackson out there either. So his mental processing, his throwing with anticipation, his accuracy, his leadership skills are what set him apart. And that's what teams are going to be looking at in the draft. And I I guess I would be surprised if he goes first round, but I think that it would be really shocking if he gets out of round 2. And I know a lot of the mock drafts have him available at 87 when the Vikings draft the 3rd round. I don't think that's going to happen. Nah. Ryan Mink. Dan Jeremiah said it's not a great wide receiver draft, but that he does like USC's Jordan Addison. Jeremiah currently has Addison going at number 12. Now, for the Vikings, what's good about it is I think DJ is talking about specifically it's not like an alpha wide receiver 1 class. Like there's no Garrett Wilson in this class. But in terms of looking for wide receiver 2s, this draft class is replete with that, and that's exactly what the Vikings are looking for, where you look down the line: Quentin Johnston, Jordan Addison, Smith and Jigba, Josh Downs, Booty, Flowers, etc. Do you see them as wide receiver 1s? Probably not, but do you absolutely see them as high-end competent wide receiver 2s and 3s? Yes, and they do have a ton of value. I mean, you look at Chris Godwin, you look at Amari Cooper, wide receiver 2s get paid $20 million a year in free agency. So, yes, again, DJ is not saying that it's a poor wide receiver class. I think it's a good wide receiver class. I think it's a deep wide receiver class, but the high-end guys aren't there like in previous seasons. Like there's no Jamar Chase in this class. There's no Garrett Wilson like we said. But if you're looking for a guy who's going to come in and complement a wide receiver 1, there's tons of them. I mean, the guys we mentioned, then also Jalen Hyatt, Rashee Rice, Marvin Mims, Trey Palmer, a guy that I love. So, I mean, there's a lot of options for the Vikings if they want to pursue a wide receiver. To be a supplement to JJ and KJ. Michael K. Teams consider Bijan Robinson a top 5 player in this class per Move the Sticks. If he goes top 10, the selecting team wouldn't get laughs from the NFL. As DJ said, I tend to agree. There is an issue with drafting running back in first round if you're a contender. And I think that... So running back has been a devalued position. You generally don't pay guys on their second contract if they're a running back. You can get similar production from a day 3 or UDFA player as you can a top 10 guy. But Bijan Robinson is different. Like it is Bijan Robinson and it is everyone else in terms of running backs, where he is a legit difference maker. He is a playmaker. He is a threat to score every single time that he touches the football. And I think that the running back hate has gone a little bit too far, where it's like, oh, you never take a running back in the first round. Well, say you're Buffalo at the back end of the first round, or say you're Philly with 2 first-round picks. And Bijan Robinson, I mean, could come in and completely change the dynamic of your offense. You got to look into that. And, we've had situations in mock drafts where the Vikings are on the clock at 23. Bijan Robinson is there. And if they don't re-sign Dalvin Cook, if they don't re-sign Alexander Madison, I know that, Ty Chandler was a preseason MVP, and we want to see what King Kenne has, but Bijan Robinson is that dude. And it's a difference between drafting a guy at 23 versus top 5, top 10. But also, I mean, the NFL marches to the beat of their own drum. And I easily could see Bijan Robinson going as a top 10 selection. Like we said, especially with the Eagles, who have 2 first-round picks, including the number 10 overall selection. If Robinson's there and that Miles Sanders walks in free agency, I mean, it's a luxury. It is an absolute luxury. And then finally, Stanley. Daniel Jeremiah says there's potentially 5 franchise quarterbacks in the 2023 class. Says it isn't one of those years where it is a can't-miss prospect as all the other quarterbacks have flaws. He says it is Bryce Young, a gap, and the other guys would put Hooker in that group as well. And looking at the quarterback list, where I mean Bryce Young, his only knock against him is durability questions as well as his size. Like DJ also mentioned that Bryce Young is going to weigh in at 200, but you can add weight. You can't really add height. So does he check in at 5'10", 200? Maybe. I think C.J. Stroud, given his frame and given his accuracy, I think that he probably is the safest of the 5 prospects if you're going to bet on a guy. Levis and Richardson, high ceiling, high floor. Hendon Hooker, I think, is relatively safe, although his age and coming off the ACL will ding him in the process. But it wouldn't shock me at all if any one of these 5 guys turn into a franchise quarterback. I mean, some of them have more warts than others. They're not as clean as, say, a Joe Burrow coming in. They're not as clean as a Caleb Williams coming into the draft next year. But I mean, it's a quarterback-driven league, and you're always going to want to take chances on these young quarterbacks because teams need to find that guy. Because how many elite quarterbacks are there in the league? 5? Yeah, and every single team is trying to find one, and that's why even if this is a down year for the quarterback class, or just wait to take a quarterback next year, they're way better. No, you're still going to take a chance this year because you have to try and win this year. You have to try and find that guy right now, and all 5 of these guys could be the guy. I mean, there's not a surefire bet. There's never a surefire bet in the NFL draft, but it is super interesting and intriguing. And yes, the Vikings should take a shot at the quarterback if given opportunity. But your thoughts are thoughts. Daniel Jeremiah, pre-combine draft conference call, talked about a couple of his answers that affect the Vikings. Let us know your thoughts and our thoughts in the comment section below. Subscribe for daily Vikings takes. Want to support the work? Put a little something in the Venmo. But till next time, Skull Production Value.